Hello, and you are back in the Velvet Room with Jokerthefool. This is our 41st episode, and today we'll be discussing that the die is cast and Jewish tunnels in New York City. So we're going to get right into it with the first topic. And I want to talk about this because this was one that really just came out of left field for me. If you had on your crazy shit that was going to happen in 2024 bingo card that a synagogue in Brooklyn would be found to have not quite a network. I guess maybe a little bit of network of underground tunnels being dug, and the police would bust and raid it. I Congratulations to you. You're correct. I was not expecting that at all. I think this is a very, interesting story. Now, of course, a lot of people are speculating and theorizing that, this was being used to run an underground pedophile ring. You saw like a baby chair and a Soil Kitty mattress. That's what I heard. The story is that this was being used to circumnavigate COVID restrictions because a lot of the Orthodox Hasidic Jews in that community, or basically any community, a lot of it comes from in-person interaction that you can't really recreate through Zoom. So you would want to meet at the synagogue, and they're using these tunnels to do so. I'm not sure about the 100% truth of that, but it's just a very interesting, very absurd thing that happened. I just wanted to mention it and talk about that fact. And of course, a lot of people are going to be using this to be explicitly anti-Semitic, blame the Jews for everything, and yada yada, all these sorts of things. Even though, I mean, in that, like the Orthodox Jewish community, I do think some of them go like way too hard to the fundamentalism, like doing circumcisions with their mouths. That's an actual thing, going like way, I don't know. You can do whatever you want in terms of eating kosher, but I think the whole thing goes like a bit too far into the aspect of fundamentalism, where your entire life, your existence revolves around the religion and all these, 1,000-year-old rituals that are a bit meaningless. But every religious group has these sects that go way too far. I mean, the Christians have got the Mormons, the Muslims have the Saudi Arabian Morality Council, the Hindus have the people who still won't actually touch the untouchable. So every religious group, every religious sect will have these people that take it way too far, that live their entire lives by it, and becomes more of a cult than an actual religion. Even though some people will say, well, what's the difference? The difference is just that with a religion, the leader of it is dead, whereas with a cult, that person is still alive. That I've heard that before, so I'll leave you to make your own decision on that. But this was just an interesting thing that happened in Brooklyn, and the fact that you had this, these tunnels being dug underground, and this was something that was able to happen in Brooklyn, in one of the most populous cities on the planet, definitely in the United States of America, where you've got, all these zoning laws, all this regulation and such. The fact that this could be done right under the noses of these people means of the state, of the general population, means who else knows what's going on in the world. So it's definitely very interesting to think about, and I imagine you'll see even more ridiculous stuff happening that might not necessarily be related to the Jews, but just, crazy stuff in general that people are doing because they're able to sneak around and get away with it. But we're going on to the next thing, and, the die is cast, talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Of course, now they're trying to rebrand it and market it as DIBS, diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity. Although I think belong is just, we want everyone to feel good about the race hustling, feel good about abolishing meritocracy. And that's the biggest issue, is the abolition of meritocracy, making meritocracy seem like it's this racist, sexist concept to judge people by their abilities and competency, rather than saying, well, you fit into this demographic, you can't get this job, or you fit into this demographic, which means you have to get this job, right? That's the balancing act. Now, of course, they'll say, well, we're doing this, we're giving underrepresented voices a chance to shine, and we'll always hire the best people for the job, and no one's a diversity hire, everyone needs needs to be here, but that's really not how it plays out in reality. It's more like we need X amount of this demographic, Y amount of this demographic, and it doesn't matter what the qualifications are. It matters about getting these specific numbers on the sheet, so we can say, hey, we have X amount of employees that aren't white, or we have X amount of employees that are women. Look how progressive and caring we are about the social justice cause, right? When it's really just a very dry, cynical, cold and calculated move to boost your ESG score, to not be called racist by the people who calling you racist has weight in the legacy institutions. That's really what all this DEI stuff is about. And, Mark Cuban was talking about it, really pushing this perspective that DEI, this movement, is really just allowing underrepresented people to finally get jobs and finally get employment and all these sorts of things, when that really isn't the case. This really is more about the abolition of meritocracy and pushing race hustling onto as many people as possible. And it's really, the idea goes very hand in hand with the idea of anti-racism, where it's not enough to just not be racist. You have to actively be anti-racist, and being anti-racist means you're so against racism that we're going to just give opportunities to the underprivileged minorities, because God forbid they can't work hard and achieve and do anything that requires them to do hard work and actually achieve a good standing for themselves and in general society by meritocracy, by hard work. It has to be given to them because they're just completely incompetent. Again, it's the bigotry of low expectations. People say soft bigotry. No, it's just the bigotry of low expectations. It's just presented in a way that seems kind and caring, which is why people will call it soft, but it is really just bigotry to say you're so incompetent, so dismal because of your ethnicity or your race or whatever have you, you're being judged by, that you can't achieve it through hard work, learning, education, to skill yourself into whatever role you're applying for. It has to be given to you just because you're going to be incompetent regardless, or you're going to be held down regardless. And it's a very defeatist mindset. It's why a lot of people view themselves as victims and losers and are dealing with all these mental health issues, is because you have the society telling them you're going to be held down, you're going to be pushed down because of your origin, and you can't change that. So what's the point of doing anything? So it's a very toxic mindset, not just for the people who are against it, but for the people who are for it as well. That's what I want you to be aware of. And the whole thing, this would all be funny, but it's having an actual negative impact on society, because if you abolish meritocracy for a McDonald's and you have someone who doesn't know how to do math be the cashier at McDonald's, they'll just fuck up a couple orders. But if you have someone who doesn't even know basic algebra designing jet engines, that's a lot more problematic. If you have someone who doesn't know basic human anatomy doing surgery, that's a lot more problematic. If you have someone who doesn't know what a yoke is in terms of a cockpit for an airplane control fly a plane, that's a lot more problematic. So if you abolish meritocracy and things where it's extremely important that people who are competent and know what they're doing are actually doing those jobs, then it's going to have negative effects on society. And you are actually starting to see that, and it's going to get worse the more and more this happens. Now, hopefully what will happen is that this will start to get so bad that they'll see that this is happening, and they'll be like, oh shit, we gotta course correct here and sort of let the DEI pedal a little bit, so that way we can have a bit of a meritocracy, enough so that way the pilots and the surgeons and all the other people who need to actually know what they're doing will know what they're doing, and they can just save the DEI for not the bullshit jobs, but the jobs where it doesn't really matter if you're skilled or not, and if you mess it up, then it doesn't really cause any meaningful damage, just something that the company has to write off in their quarterly reports, right? That's the biggest thing there, and that's my biggest concern with DEI is abolishing meritocracy, meaning that jobs that need meritocracy in order to function well, where people's lives are on the line, where people need to know what they're doing, and where their knowledge of where having the knowledge of what to do actually affects other people's livelihoods and stuff like that, where it's very material. Abolishing meritocracy in those jobs, and also just the cultural impact that pushing this onto the population has as well. It's a very negative cultural impact. So those are the two biggest things with DEI that you have to keep in mind, is that it's bad to abolish meritocracy, and it's also bad to put people in the mindset that you're never going to be able to get ahead or get into a good position in life because of your race. If you do, it's only because it was bestowed upon you by basically the white man at this point. Like the people running corporate America, they're all straight white men, or mostly straight white men, and they're very graciously deciding to give you the employment, give you the opportunity, and that's the only reason you got it, is because they feel bad for you, not you having actually achieved it. And that's why they'll never really admit to people being diversity hires, and always say we chose the person who was best qualified for the job, and we're just finally giving underrepresented people a chance to be in the playing field, because they'll never want to admit to the bigotry of low expectations because of how racist and discriminatory it is. But that is exactly what they're doing, and never let them gaslight you into thinking anything else. And with that, I think I've gabbed long enough. I hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll be back with episode 42 on Thursday, and we'll go into the outro now. Thank you for being in the Velvet Room with Jokerthefool. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, whether you're listening on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, or Substack. And be sure to subscribe to my Substack, velvetroompublishing.substack.com, to keep up with Machine to Man and all my other projects.